Hi everyone, I'm Daria from Subsquid, and today I'm going to show you how to migrate from the graph to using Squid SDK. First, make sure that you have the Subsquid CLI installed. For that, let's copy the command from the documentation and paste it to the terminal. To make sure that it is installed correctly, you can type sqd version. Next, let's set up a starter template. Today we're going to migrate Gravatar Squid, so we need an EVM template. To start the project, let's run sqd init Gravatar Squid template EVM. This is going to clone the starter template for EVM chains. Next, let's examine the subgraph we're going to convert. First, let's go to subgraph.yaml file. This is where we specify the data sources and the events we want to index. Then we have schema GraphQL file, just like in the Squid. And finally, we have the source folder with the event handlers. Let's start from the schema. We can just copy and paste it to our Squid. Next, let's go to the ABI folder and copy the ABI. We will need it for indexing events. You can make a new file in our ABI folder and paste the ABI. Next, let's take a look at subgraph.yaml file. We can see that we track the Gravatar address, and we also record two events, new Gravatar and updated Gravatar. With that, we can go to our processor.ts file and start the setup. First, since we're indexing events, let's add log. And we want the log from the address from the YAML file. Next, since we want to index events, we need to generate typings from our ABI. For that, let's run sqd typegen. Now our typings has been generated, so we can import the ABI. We can also delete the old add transaction field. Next, let's add the events. Since we only want to track two events, let's specify the topics. Since we imported the ABI, we can now use the events from it. So we do it the following way. Gravatar.events.new Gravatar.topic. And we also want another event, which is updated Gravatar. So we add this as well. Next, let's handle saving the data. For that, first, we need to generate types from the schema. So let's run sqd codegen. Now let's go to main.ts so we can save the data. First, let's import the new entity from the schema. In our schema, the entity is called Gravatar, so let's change burn to Gravatar. Next, let's rename the array. And let's also change its type. Since we're tracking logs and not transactions, we also need to change the inner loop. So let's do let log of c.logs. So now we are iterating over the logs. We can get rid of this since we're using the new entity. Next, we need to decode the event. Since we're tracking two types of events, we need to keep track of that. So let's do it the following way. We can change topics of the log and check if it is equal to the event we want. But first, don't forget to import the event from the ABI. Now we can use it to check the topics of the event. So let's see. If the topic 0 of the event is equal to new gravatar, we decode it like the new gravatar event. In the generated file, we can see that the event contains ID, owner, display name, and image URL. So we can destructure it like this. Let ID, owner, display name, and image URL equal to gravity gravatar ABI dot events dot new gravatar decode log. Now we can create the entity. Let gravatar equal to new gravatar. And let's go to the schema and verify. We need ID, owner, display name, and URL. So for ID, we can use ID, owner, display name, and image URL. And since we copied the schema from the graph, we can see that some types don't align. So let's go to the schema. And in our case, owner is going to be a string. So let's save the schema and run skd code gen again. And we should get rid of one of the warnings. And we also need to make an ID a string, so we can do it the following way. So let ID string is equal to id.toString, and it's going to be base 16. So now we're going to use ID string as the ID. And we can duplicate it and paste, and just change new gravatar to updated gravatar. And change new gravatar to updated gravatar here so we can decode the event. And finally, we also need to push our gravatar to the gravatar array, like so. Then we can get rid of this. And now we just need to upsort our gravatars array. And it's done, but we can also optimize it a little bit. Let's declare a new function called extract data. And it's going to take a log and it's going to return ID, owner, display name, and image URL. So the ID is going to be a string. Owner is going to be a string as well. And same for display name and image URL. So we can handle two types of events, new gravatar and updated gravatar. And then we can just copy this and return ID string, owner, display name and image URL. And we also need to rename the output to ID string. And we can do the same here. But we just need to substitute to updated gravatar. Now we can get rid of all of this. And say let ID string owner display name and image URL be equal to extract data and pass the log. And then we can say that gravatar is going to be equal to new gravatar, where ID is going to be ID string, owner is going to be owner, display name, and image URL. And then we need to push the gravatar into the gravatars array. Another thing we can optimize is use the map instead of an array. So let's do map, and they're going to map from string to gravatar entity, and make it new map. And instead of push, we're going to use set ID string gravatar. And finally, since we can batch insert an array, we need to change this to gravatar values. This way, we're not inserting duplicate values into the database. So let's build the project and run sqg build. Now let's open Docker and test it out. So make sure that you have Docker open. Then let's run sqd up, sqd migration, generate, and finally sqd process. This will start the indexing, and we also can use the GraphQL endpoint to see the values. So for that, let's open a second terminal and run sqd serve. Next, let's open a new browser tab and go to localhost GraphQL. And here we can see the gravatars. Let's run a query. We can see all the IDs. So let's see the rest of the data. And like so, we're done. So we have successfully indexed the gravatars. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. You can also find the useful links in the video description.